Let us talk about Mother India today by Mehboob Khan. This is a movie which was released in the year 1957 and considered an epic in Indian filmography. And you can understand the importance of the film by the fact that whenever we talk of any list of the greatest Indian films, Mother India is one permanent film. Mother India has to be there in every list. So this has been a much celebrated film in the history of Indian cinema, a film which was known for. Please excuse me. There are other background noises. My son will be making a lot of noises during this recording. Okay, let us continue. Okay, so as we had already read about, Mother India was released in the year 1957. Considered a classic, a modern classic in the context of Indian film history. Very importantly, the film Mother India propagates a kind of nationalism. Now, in the last lectures, I had talked about the concept of how mother as a symbolic figure comes about in the Indian freedom struggle. Now, this film particularly propagates the myth that the state's progress, the progress of the country, actually provides for a better living condition for the marginal section of the society, for the marginal, the needy, the people, the poverty-stricken people. So this film is talking about not just the concept of the mother, but it is also taking the idea of welfare along with it. So mother and the concept of welfare go hand in hand in this story of this film. And before Mother India released, also there have been some important films in this category. And after Mother India, filmmakers have started to adapt and reproduce this imagery, like this iconic representation of the nation as the mother. And this has been reproduced time and again by different other filmmakers. And the context that has been used most of the time has been that of the sacrifice of the individual for the collective good. So the individual's sacrifice is considered, if it's done for the betterment of the society, is considered to be that ideal society, the ideal community, the ideal village scenario. So what does Mehboob do in his films? Mehboob Khan actually reinvented these icons of national martyrdom. He created new symbols and metaphors for the Indian nation itself. So, and remember, this Mother India is released post independence. It's a good decade after the India wins independence. So by this time, the imagery of the nation is almost concretized in the vision of somebody called Jawaharlal Nehru. So Mehboob Khan creates this cinematic iconography of a fast emerging new nation, which since we are talking about new nation, you will understand we are also grappling with the idea of finding our own character, because for long enough we had lived in the shadows of the colonial rulers, and thus this film provides for and creates this new kind of imageries that Mehboob Khan had envisioned for this country. So new metaphors, new symbolism, new iconography, so which we will look in detail in the next slides. So films like Mother India actually draw from this tradition of nationalist metaphor of India's independence struggle. So on the base of all of this iconography, of course, is the very important idea of the Indians' independence movement, which after all is a very strong movement. So there was a lot of impact on the cultural politics of sovereign India by its past, by its immediate colonial past. So sovereign India's this moments of identity creation have been informed by this struggle for independence, let's say. And this also has provided for provided for and also made a mark on the economic and ideological process of nation building. So the colonial struggle provides for the um, ideological vantage context of the Indian nation. So how do we proceed forward as a nation? How do we see the nation in a few years' time? What do we want to achieve with our nation building process? So these are some of the concepts that has been dealt by Mehboob Khan in his film Mother India. In the film, the audience, when they witness the plight of Mother India, is reminded of the struggles for survival. So the struggles that are depicted on screen, the struggles that are depicted of the women of the nation, people can relate to those struggles with their daily life. So Mother India resonates with the kind of struggle that people face in their daily lives, in their everyday lives, in a newly independent country. Now, as a woman, now remember Mother India's character is a woman in this film, played by Nargis Dutt. So, as a woman again, as an icon, she is also stylized. It's a abstract of recreating the idea of life itself, everyday life. And as a peasant, and she is also a farmer in the film. So Mother India is a farmer in the film. So she also resonates with this idea of earth, the soil of the mother earth. So she is resonating this concept of creation of the new, the fertile land. So there we find that the imagery of Mother Earth strongly connected with the role of the farmer, the peasant. You will notice that the poster that we have of the film on our also Google Classroom, you will realize that this picture actually shows Nagi toiling in the field. She is sweating, she is toiling, she is farming, she is tilling the land, and this is a very earthy kind of a representation of Mother India. But this concept of the Mother Earth, while might look to you probably as an archaic imagery, because after all earth is about farming and toiling, but actually no, it's a very modern and a nationalist myth that we have created in the film, as the woman being the concept of the woman resonating with the concept of Mother Earth and providing for progress and fertility, and because women have not played much of a role as a peasant and the farmer. So we will come to this point again in the later part of the presentation. Now, one of the most crucial, from a cinematic perspective, one of the most crucial point here to make is that this particular film, Mother India, the images, the symbols, the icons that have been used by Mehboob Khan, they do not depend on the epics. Now this is what we have been talking about in the previous classes, that most of our cinematic idiom have been derived from the epic. Now this particular movie does not depend on the epics. Its images and symbols, as what we called in the earlier point, these are all connected to the modern nationalist myth, and that is a very important point to remember here. Now if you remember the book, the original book by Nehru, this Discovery of India, and some of you might have read this book, it's a very important book in the history of our country. This book was written somewhere between 1940, in the early part of the 1940s, when Nehru himself was serving jail time. He wrote the whole book in jail, sitting in jail, The Discovery of India. Mm, and the 5-year plans that we have in independent India, and thanks to Nehru, we depend on the 5-year plans for the progress of the country. And till the early 2000, this used to be a big thing. Every 5 year we have laid out goals for the next 5 years, so what we achieve as a nation. And so this two ideas, the Discovery of India as a book and the 5-year plans, are very crucial to this modern nationalist myth that is created in the film. We will look how these icons that are created in the film are constructed in such a way that they serve Nehru's political vision of the nation state, and at the same time Mehboob Khan's his own ideas for a new India, his own ideas of India, his own ideas, dreams about how he envisions his country. Remember, many of these filmmakers who were working during this time were also freedom fighters. They had seen the freedom struggle from a close quarter. Some of them also used to be um, what you call as Congress party workers, if not leaders. So the Nehruvian political vision was very close to what some of these individuals would be thinking on their own, right? So these icons that have been created, these images, these symbols that have been depicted in the film, closely resonate with Nehru's idea of the new India. So you have to understand this concept. Sudipta Kaviraj indicates this difference. He says India, the objective reality of today's history, is not an object of discovery but of invention. Now, this is a very important point where he is saying, Sudipta Kaviraj is saying, that this reality of this history, of today's history that we understand, is not something that we have found ourselves. It's not the discovery of India, it's the invention of India. These images, the symbols of Nehruvian vision of a new India have been part of an invented narrative. That's what he is saying. So this is not something we have derived from our epics, our histories, our past. This has been part of the vision of Nehru or Mehboob Khan, in this case of the cinema. So who were the inventors? So the inventors were this intellectual class, the artist class, who developed these characteristics of this new India, the imaginary India. So this imaginary Indian culture was thus a created culture, was an invented culture. That's what Sudipta Kaviraj is arguing in his ode to this movie, that Nehru's idea of India was something very totally alien to what was this original idea of if you go back to the past. So Nehru was not dealing much with the past, he was drawing from the future. How does he envision the future India? So the 20th century traditions were further reinforced and adapted to this contemporary political need. And thus you see it talks about future. These imageries and symbols, as you will see in the slides, this talks about future. They are concerned about the future, they are not talking about the past. So Nehru's vision of discovery of India is a political idea which is adapted by Mehboob Khan in his cinematic adaptation, which is Mother India. And some of these visions find place in this movie.